Good evening. Good morning slash good evening.
Good evening, good morning.
Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu.
How are you?
I am doing well. I'm I'm getting ready to go back to the States finally.
Yeah, you had talked about that a few sessions. Yeah, where you're gonna, or a couple of months ago, you were gonna pick up your certificate for your naming. You had left, was it the certificate? You had,
Right. Yeah,
the documents.
Yeah, that's one of the things I have to look for when I get over there. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be nice to relax. And it's been almost 3 years now since I've been able to go back to California. So
Excellent. Sorry, do you mind if I have some coffee while we're...
Please do.
My own mocha mix.
Oh, sounds good.
Decaf, Colombian decaf, but with like a few drops of pure chocolate extract.
Ooh, okay. Man, that does sound awfully tasty.
Anyway, so yeah, I still have my document for mine. If I ever sort of, decide, I think, whatever I do about my Dharma name, I will want that to be my Dharma name. Whether, do you know what I mean? I just want to, I don't know. I feel like I just want to sort things out at that end first before I to just, do you know what I mean? But and I thought about too, technically, I looked at the timing of when I got my Dharma name, and I got my Dharma name and went through that ceremony prior to the sort of formalized constitution of the Amida temple.
Oh.
So technically, in the afterward, it is written into the rules that if you decide that you're not going to follow this path and leave, then you lose your Dharma name and can only be reinstated. But I had that Dharma ceremony before that was, it was
a rule.
Before he left, before the Amida and Josho left Hongwanji. So that was technically still under Hongwanji.
Oh, okay.
So, sort of in that sense, do you know what I mean? I feel like whatever happens, I can legitimately sort of,
right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Claim that.
Actually, if you ever had the opportunity or you wanted to do get a homyo from the head temple in Kyoto, you can actually apply for what name you would like. So you could actually apply for the same Dharma name. I believe it's Gankai.
Gankai, yeah. Yeah, that was the,
yeah.
So, but anyway, that's a sort of off topic.
Well, it's important though.
Yeah, no, it's big. Yeah, very important. But, I was going to eventually talk to you about that. But anyway, so yeah. So the topic this week.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, the topic that you sent, I think, is a great topic, really important. Basically, it's about the passage in Tanisho where he's asking Shinran about not wanting to be in a hurry to be born in the Pure Land.
Yeah, I don't really. Sometimes I feel like I don't want to go. I'm enjoying my life here, or my family, or whatever it is, and I just am neutral, or whatever that came from. That it's related. It's not exactly the same thing, because how I feel about that, like whenever I see what it's saying, and now I can relate to it in a different from a different angle, but I'm like, why wouldn't you want to go? Like why wouldn't you just, that's where I'd want to go, looking at my life, what I've experienced, okay, let's see, Pure Land or this, let me where do I want to be? like, you know what I mean? So that's kind of like, I just, but here, I'll explain basically because it relates to
Yeah, yeah.
my attraction to some of the 95 non-Buddhist ways, which is pretty narrow, which ones I'm still attracted to, or a generalized
Hmm.
area of them, genre of them, I'll say. And it's this specifically, the breakthrough that I had was specifically around this, that part of the reason for that is sometimes I feel more a connection to that when I think about those things, when I think about, certain monotheism or certain type of monotheism, than I do. And this has kind of happened with each of, are you still there? Can you still
Yes,
hear?
I just went off screen for a moment. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
So no, that's okay. If you need to look something up or whatever. So it's very narrow. Like I've gone through a process of various 95 non-Buddhist ways, and like I had to wear that out. Like I kept going back to
Yeah.
like Taoism, and for a while, and like other things, and each one kind of got weakened, or back to even atheistic kind of philosophies, or until that it almost like I had to wear myself out with it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just realized, okay, there's nothing there for you, mate. It's nothing for you to, anyway. So I often don't really feel, most of the time, in fact, I don't feel a strong connection to Amida Buddha. Okay. I don't feel a strong, like any kind of emotional or experiential, so let's call it that, experiential connection, whatever that is, whether it's emotional, spiritual, mental, whatever. I don't feel like a connection, like I don't feel this, that I hear other people kind of expressing, or I've heard other people expressing. Now, I know that probably is similar to they have Shinjin. Yeah,
we'll get to that.
Yeah, it could be a similar, thing to that. But whereas when I think about like this certain other kinds of, it's a particular kind of form. Like I would never be able to go back. Could never go back to Christianity or Judaism or Islam, or even like the Baha'i faith. I don't think I could ever really be a part of that. But some facsimile kind of my own version of monotheism, sort of inspired by those kind of teachings.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry to interrupt, but I just want to clarify, dig a little deeper. Why do you say that you couldn't ever be, a member or a believer of Christianity or Islam or Baha'i faith? Or
because there's a lot of it I just don't really, I couldn't really see myself actually being able to do, practically be part of, especially Judaism and Islam being part of their more sort of traditional, practices and things, just on a practical standpoint, and also a kind of that thing of the bamboo aspect of, I probably couldn't do this self-power stuff. So I probably couldn't really do that, and to a certain extent with Christianity as well, although there's less of that in Christianity, of the traditional forms of things, that you have to incorporate into your life. But still, it's stuff I really, and it's also stuff I really wouldn't want to, especially with Christianity, wouldn't really. I'm least drawn to that one. I'll just put it that way, weirdly. Whereas I know I couldn't ever really practice the others. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
And even the Baha'i faith as well. Like there's just things in that I couldn't. Anyway, just I just don't agree with. I just don't. Anyway, but so but there's aspects of it that there's still, for one thing is I almost see it as a simpler way. Let me explain that in this sense. It doesn't have all the it has no rebirth aspect, so there's not all this
Okay.
multiple years of multiple eons of kalpas of,
Mm.
and so I feel like it's simpler. Okay, maybe you have your soul is born, then you have a womb birth, and then you have a birth into this earthly life, and then then you have a birth into the spiritual existence. And this is my own version, of monotheism anyway. So, and that's another thing that's suspect to me. It's like my own version of something, but so it's kind of like simpler, and then you learn whatever you're meant to learn, and then there's in my version of this monotheistic path is the next, you're born into a spiritual existence, and then you continue to progress in that, in various phases of that.
Yeah.
Right? But all toward a goal. And it's not like the rebirth of into multiple worlds and back and forth, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
right. Different worldview, basically.
It's a very different worldview, very different world. But then when I look at reality, when I come back to my senses, when I start to entertain this, my own version of monotheism kind of thing, I quickly come back to reality and say, well, yeah, but samsara doesn't work like that. Do you know what I mean? Samsara is very complicated. Samsara is very confusing. Samsara is full of all these impulses that you have no, blind passions that you have no idea where the hell this stuff is coming from, that you do and you behave like, and do you know what I mean? And it gives a much better explanation of where that comes from than, oh, it's just God's will and that you're just supposed to learn stuff in this. In this one puny, this, like, we'll even call it the fourth birth into material existence, like your second birth, this earthly life, like it just doesn't fit. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it, so the just my experience and observation, I come back to my senses pretty quickly, but I'm still very drawn to that. I'm still very drawn to this, my own version of monotheism. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
It's still this very strongly habituated thing within me, just like it is has been with all the others. And the another strong one was Gnosticism for a while, but that one doesn't attract me as much. Like, it's almost like I got worn out. And Taoism was one that stayed for a long, long time.
Yeah.
You mentioned Taoism. Yeah, because I'm like, it actually does explain things in a really good, pretty coherent way. But the problem is it doesn't really give you anything to do with it. It doesn't, and it does, there's a lot, it doesn't add up in the end. Like how, like, oh, it's this wonderful Tao, that everything proceeds from, and comes, and but it's just, there's this harmony to life, but it's a pretty horrible one. There's a harmony, everything, there's a overarching harmony to life, but it's a pretty evil thing. It's a pretty horrible.
It's a world, we still have to deal with a world in which, little children get slaughtered in bombings of train stations, right?
At this day, just human trafficking and, you know what I mean? Just horrid stuff, So anyway, so it's, so that that's an example of, and each one of them is worn out, but this one's still hanging on. This one, the other ones that, sometimes the Gnosticism thing kind of habitually, it comes back and I think about it, doesn't last very long,
Now, just to clarify, by this one, you mean Taoism?
No, sorry. This one, the one I'm talking about is my own version of monotheism, we'll call it.
Okay.
My own, my own that's the one that seems to be hanging on now the most in the end. It's the kind of it's the other ones are there's some, every once in a while pops up, Taoism will pop up, and then I'll pop in my and I'll grab onto that for a little bit, and same with Gnosticism, I'll grab onto that for a little bit, and then every once in a while the atheistic, pessimistic, and I've talked about those before, but not, they don't last as long, and they don't really, I'm like, yeah, well, it's just, I quickly the monkeys get bored, or my Dharma eye sees through it, or whatever. But for some reason, this still keeps, and I've never talked about this. I've never really talked this through with anybody in a deep listening way, in a clearing the channel of faith way. And so anyway, so the breakthrough came where I was like, yeah, I feel much more of a connection to that when I think about this, the possibility of being true, than I do Amida. But then that hit me like a ton of bricks, like a diamond bullet right here. Anyway, sorry. No, it just hit, no, it wasn't any big thing like that. It was just, it hit me. It was just like, well, yeah, that kind of, since I don't feel a connection, it's similar to Yunbo not wanting to go to Pure Land. In that sense, it'd be a similar answer. Like, do you see what I'm saying? That it confirms, that you don't feel a connection,
right,
to this, some kind of experiential connection to this is like proof, or anyway, somehow I thought it was connected to that. So I'd like to discuss that aspect of it.
Yeah. And that's it's a great question, and I would say that, well, for us Westerners, let's say, those of us who are coming from a Euro American worldview and culture dominated by Christianity primarily, right? The idea of monotheism of some sort is very familiar, and therefore kind of attractive and what we're used to, and sort of comforting, right? And so a lot of people who, I think in the West, who give up on specific forms of Christianity, they give up on doctrines, or they leave the church and don't go back, very common. But a lot of them will still hold on to a kind of idea of God, right? Sort of like they'll say, I don't necessarily believe in what the church teaches, but I still believe in, a God, and so on. So not an uncommon thing, right? And it's a different worldview. People who grow up in Japan in a Jodo Shinshu household have a familiarity with Amida, Amida Buddha and the Butsudan, and having family service, and it's a warm and familiar and attractive thing, right, to them. So there's that aspect of it. Now, I would say, with regard to what you mentioned about the feeling this connection to Amida. That is, I think we have to distinguish Jodo Shinshu from more of a kind of devotional religion, like a lot of forms of Christianity, let's say, or a great example would be Hinduism, specifically is it Vaishnavism, where the practitioners are trying to cultivate this, like you said, a spiritual connection with Krishna. Specifically in his incarnation as Krishna, right? I believe that's how it goes. I'm sorry,
it's one of many versions of bhakti.
Yeah. So bhakti would be like the devotional faith par excellence, where you have to cultivate this state of being attuned to Krishna through devotional practices, right? But that's not what Jodo Shinshu teaches, right? In Jodo Shinshu, the Nimbutsu, of course, is the important thing, and the awakening of Shinjin through the Nimbutsu, and like Kobai Sensei says, entering the world of salvation, this world in which we have reached the stage or the state of being assured of reaching enlightenment, being assured of attaining Buddhahood. And in this life, right? That's important distinction. So traditional, some other older or more other forms of Pure Land Buddhism, including Jodoshu, the current version of Jodoshu, which was founded by disciples of Honen, other disciples of Honen, don't teach that you can reach that stage, what's called in Mahayana Buddhism, the stage of non-retrogression in this life. So that's a key difference. Now, I would say that what needing to feel a strong connection per se is not really the main focus of Jodo Shinshu. And I'm not going to bring up specific names, but there have been people who supposedly felt that strong emotional kind of connection with Amida in the terms of Jodo Shinshu, and then when it goes away, they have no choice but to leave, because what they thought was, they lost what they thought was the whole point, and what they thought was the meaning of Shinjin and so on. So they end up leaving, because at that point you've kind of, you've lost what what you think is the point of the religion. But going back to Yuinbo's question to Shinran, and I think it is connected, very much so. He, basically says to Shinran, there are times when I don't really particularly feel like going to the Pure Land at all, I mean, I actually asked this question to Kobai Sensei when I was attending a Dharma meeting at his house in Osaka. And I got a really good answer. But we need to discuss this, because it's really important. It's like, if you don't get this right about Jodo Shinshu, then it kind of becomes another thing entirely. So it really is a key issue. I'm kind of reminded of, well, let's go back to Yuinbo. So Shinran's reply to Yuinbo was, well, I actually have felt in the past similar things to what you're experiencing. And when I think about it, it means that Amida specifically has compassion for people like you and me, who don't have a wish, a desire to go and be born in the Pure Land very quickly. And he said, if we did have that kind of pure aspiration, we might wonder if we aren't Bambu anymore.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So that was Shinran's reply.
That we don't want to go. It's almost even more. What did he say? Something like, it's even more that our salvation is even more secure.
Yeah. That's exactly what he says. Yeah.
He's always had a way of just turning things on its head. The way you
I mean, that's what I love about Shinran.
The common sense, thing that you think, is what that means. It doesn't. it just doesn't.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Yeah.
Well,
please.
I think that's why Shinran was such an amazing teacher, and why he was so incredibly popular. I think it's because he was able to address people's specific spiritual needs with, that kind of application of, Amida's vow and so on. So,
So is it? So do you see? Is that kind of related to what I kind of that sort of thought?
Yeah, exactly. And here's where it's related.
Amida gave me, through, or whatever, however that works.
Right.
It's just, that's why I said I first wrote it as I had a breakthrough, and then I said no, there has been a breakthrough. I'm not going to take credit for it. But that, so since I don't feel a connection, is it a similar? Do you think it would be a similar? If I had this constant feeling of that I had this connection, I might think I'm not a bamboo, or I'm somehow look at how good my merit is, or that I have this connection with Amida, or is that, do you think that's a similar?
Yes, I do. I think it's exactly a parallel. And I think that people who get hung up on this kind of idea that they have to they have to cultivate this spiritual connection with Amida in order to be saved. They're kind of approaching it from the wrong,
Angle.
Angle.
You're trying to cultivate a connection.
You're trying to create some sort of,
and that's it with me. That's there. I want to have that connection, with Amida. So I try to feel it, or I try to inject in me, or try to, do things to make that happen. When it's really, we got the wrong way around. It's Amida cultivating a connection with us.
Exactly.
It's Amida just cultivating the connection. We're not cultivating the connection at all. Amida is doing tuning. Amida's got, it's not even us tuning into his station. We're the receiver being tuned.
That is exactly it. I mean, you just said it perfectly. I would call that a breakthrough. that definitely is a huge,
Amida is cultivating the connection. Amida is doing the tuning, not me. Not us.
Exactly. And that's why listening, hearing is the way, the path of Shinju, right?
Yeah. Something
and it's,
go ahead.
It's not, Shinjin isn't something that we, cultivate or create ourselves. It's something that is, comes about naturally, because we talked about the water running on the stone, right? And it's a natural thing that happens as we immerse ourselves in, the Dharma. So now, one more thing I want to say is, in Pure Land Buddhism, generally, the way of cultivating the connection with Amida is through, chanting of the Nimbutsu, or visualization practice, like in the Contemplation Sutra. And I think we already talked about Shinran Shonin on Mount Hiei, doing the trying to cultivate a connection through his own power. And he was one of the top practicers there, and he couldn't achieve that spiritual realization
after 20 years of doing that.
Yeah. So if Shinran couldn't achieve that, where I'm going with this.
And he was living, when he was living too. We're further into Mappo than even that time. Do you know what I mean? So if he couldn't do it, and we're us, and we're living deeper in Mappo, then how do you think?
Well, even beyond that, you and I are just lay Buddhists. We live a life full of distractions, you know. We're not on a mountain, meditating 16 hours a day.
No, exactly.
Yeah. So exactly like you said,
a very minuscule amount of human births somewhere, I did do that. In some universe somewhere, I'd like to think I at least once, as a human, had that.
Well, you may,
have that in one of the very minuscule times that I was born as a human. All the kalpas. But anyway.
Well, there's a sutra that says, Shinran quotes it in Kyogyo Shinsho. It says the bodhisattvas are basically discussing their past history, and they're saying, in countless lives throughout the rounds of rebirth, we awakened the aspiration for enlightenment. But we could never, even though we awakened it, we could never reach the fulfillment of, we could never reach the enlightenment of Buddhahood. And then they said, only through the Nimbutsu were we able to achieve the fruit of enlightenment of Buddhahood. So
where is that said, and who's saying it at the time? Who?
It's bodhisattvas. I'd have to look the passage up, unfortunately, but it's basically in a sutra that is quoted by Shinran in Kyogyo Shinsho.
Okay.
It's a Mahayana sutra, of course. I want to talk a bit more about the visualization aspect. So, as you probably know, Honen Shonin, practiced visualization of the Pure Land. And because Honen Shonin really revered Shandao Zendo Daishi. And Zendo Daishi, of course, based his system of Pure Land doctrine largely on the Contemplation Sutra. And so Honen also did the practice, the visualization of that sutra, and he was able to visualize the ground. So if you read the sutra, it talks about this like barrel, it's like a sheet of glass or like deep ice, and it's like just extending endlessly, it's one of the initial visualizations.
Different phases of
and Honen visualized the ground, and then he stopped. He gave up on the visualization. And why did you?
Honen achieved it.
He achieved the visualization of the ground.
Okay.
And then he stopped practicing visualization. And one of his disciples asked him, why did you stop? And he said, even if I were able to visualize the jeweled trees of the Pure Land, they couldn't possibly be more beautiful than the cherry blossoms of the trees in this world.
That was his
reply to the disciple who asked him, why did you stop visualizing the Pure Land?
Was that his way of saying, I'm so attached to sense pleasure that there's no way I could possibly get past that, is that kind of what he was?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's pointing to the nature of the Pure Land as transcending, all these things of that you can't, no matter how much you try to conceptualize it. It's like we discussed last time. It's the land of light, which is the wisdom that surpasses human conception, ability to comprehend. It's the land of infinity and emptiness, and it surpasses so completely these visualizations. The visualization is a sort of an upaya, a skillful means to help people, but even if you visualize the Pure Land, it's still only a provisional image, right? Everyone who visualizes the Pure Land, they're not seeing the same thing. They're visualizing it in their subjective way, right?
Yeah, true.
So I think that's why Honen said, I think that's why Honen basically stopped visualizing and just relied on, taught the Nimbutsu. Because the Nimbutsu, when we say the Nimbutsu, when we hear the Nimbutsu, it's telling us directly, and Shinran Shonin talks about this, take refuge in Amida, which is infinite compassion, infinite wisdom, the Buddha of Buddhas. That is the key to Jodo Shinshu, to Pure Land Buddhism, not visualizing through our own efforts the Pure Land and so on. So I think that does kind of tie in with Tanisho, because we do live in a world where there's a lot of suffering, but we also live in a world where there's beautiful cherry trees and, delicious things to eat. I know when I'm, enjoying a nice hot bath after a great dinner, I'm just enjoying the moment, and I'm not in any hurry to go to the Pure Land. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's just part of our nature as unenlightened beings. We have these attachments. We are, deeply attached to all of these things and forms, and the Pure Land, is calling to us beyond, it's a transcendent realm of enlightenment that is, calling to awaken us. Like in the sutra, it talks about the sounds of the birds, preaching the Dharma, So I think that, maybe kind of relates a bit to your question too.
Which means that there's no point, almost. It's just, there's no point us trying to visualize or try to cultivate any kind of connection, because we're so limitlessly attached. We're so incalculably attached and mired in our ignorance and samsara that there just would be, it's all just going to be, an imaginative dalliance of
exactly,
basically, because anything we were going to picture is just is that kind of the
I think that's exactly right. So and then of course in the original vow, the primal vow, there's the three faith minds, so the threefold faith, it's called. It talks about those beings who with sincere mind awaken joyful faith and wish to be born in my land. Three: sincere mind, joyful faith, and wish to be born. And I asked Kobai Sensei, well, first of all, so these three minds, this is very important.
Say that again. It's sincere mind. Say the three again.
Sincere mind, joyful faith, and wish to be born in the Pure Land. It's Shishin Shingyo Yokusho in Japanese. So Shishin is sincere mind. And sometimes it's translated loosely as sincerely, those who sincerely have faith and so on. Shingyo is
is that true and trusting? Is that similar to, or is that the second one?
The second one is true and trusting. So Shingyo is joyful faith or Shinjin.
Okay.
Basically, it's Shinjin.
Okay.
And then Yokusho is the aspiration to be born in the Pure Land. And I asked Kobai Sensei, what about, when you don't have any particular, you're relaxing at the onsen, the hot springs, and life is good, and you have no particular wish to transcend this world, you're just enjoying life. And Kobai Sensei said, well, very important reply, which is that the wish to be born, Shinron explains that this aspiration is actually, it's not a mind, it's not a wish that we have to cultivate. It's not like, I wish to be born in the Pure Land, I wish to be born in the Pure Land.
Yeah.
What it is it's Amida's wish to save us and all beings and bring all beings to be born in the Pure Land.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Amida's wish to save us.
Yeah, to bring us to be born in the it's Amida's wish for our birth in the Pure Land. And how we now this sincere mind, joyful faith,
and wish to be born. And that's Amida's wish. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Amida to be born.
Yes.
For us to be born.
The same goes for the sincere mind. I don't have a sincere mind.
That's what, yeah. Wow.
And Shinron Shonin says, really famous passage in Kyogyo Shinsho, he talks about how the beings throughout the 10 quarters, they lack this mind. They don't have the sincere mind. So Amida directs his sincere mind to us through the name, through Namo Amida Butsu. And that sincere mind from Amida becomes our Shinjin. And that's why, and there's a lot of explanations. It's kind of an advanced, or it's a big topic. I mean, it's all of Jodo Shinshu doctrine.
In the primer, there's a part of the primer that sent me of Reverend George, what's his name?
George Gattenby.
Yeah. He is a lot of that. There's a lot of focusing on that. Amida's mind, giving us his mind.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Word. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
And Shingyo, joyful faith. This is what we experience on our side through when we awaken Shinjin.
Given the sincere mind.
Yeah. It's a gift. Yeah. And it's something that, arises naturally.
So it's like a response to that, the actual faith.
Well, it in some sense, it is that. It is Amida's mind that is being given to us, right?
Yeah, no,
so
I'm saying but then
to
have Shinjin is a result of that mind.
Shinjin is that mind. Shingyo equals Shinjin.
Okay, so it also is that mind. Okay.
Yes. Shingyo, joyful faith, is just basically another word, another term for Shinjin, basically. And so Yokusho, now we have to ask, how do we receive or experience this mind? And according to Kobai Sensei, Yokusho is experienced by us as assurance of being born in the Pure Land. So it's not like I'm wishing to be born. It's not like we feel we have to wish to be born there or we won't be born there. It's more of like, it's like relaxing.
Sure.
It's like knowing without doubt that you will be born in the Pure Land because of the working of Amida's vow. So it's a very different emotion or feeling, right? Than having to think, well, if I don't wish, I've got to wish to be born there, I've got to want to go there or I won't go there, that kind of thing. Totally different feeling, right? So that kind of is in Shinran's answer to Yunbo's question too, right? Is that this yokusho, this wish to be born in the Pure Land, is Amida's wish for us to be born in the Pure Land.
So it's Amida's mind, sincere mind. And so it's sincere mind, joyful faith, did you say?
Yes, joyful faith is how it's usually translated. But
faith is also Amida's mind. And the wish to be born is actually Amida's wish for us to be born. In his. So again, no working is, so even the action of our mind, there's no point.
Yeah. You can't arrange your mind.
Not even my mind, not even mental action. Is, let alone physical action. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah, exactly. And Shinran breaks down, and at some point I want to discuss this in more detail and in one of our talks, because it really is important. But Shinran basically, very famous section where he takes the kanji, the Chinese characters for each of these three faiths, Shishin, Shingyo, Yokusho. And he basically shows how they all have essentially the same meaning. And that the meaning is they are all the mind that is single. So when Bodhisattva Vasubandhu says, "O world-honored one, with a mind that is single, I take refuge in the Tathagata of unhindered light shining throughout the 10 quarters." That mind that is single, even though it appears as three minds, three in the text of the primal vow, it's all the same mind, which is Amida's mind being directed to us, which we then receive as Shinjin. So in a nutshell, that is the doctrine of Jodo Shinshu as Shinran Jonin teaches it in Kyoto Shinshu.
In one sentence, basically, in three things. It's similar to, do those correspond with, because I've heard three conditions as, so entrusting to Amida, wishing to go to Pure Land, or wishing to be born in his land, and saying Nembutsu as sort of the three conditions or three elements. Is that, where did I get that from?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
Maybe not, because they aren't conditions in the primal vow.
It doesn't say that in the not conditions. Yeah, not really conditions. Yeah, that's my own word. That's why I said elements. Three elements was what I really mean. So there's so three elements of faith, I should say. Three elements of faith are, that's a better way to put it. Is
you may have
aspects
that
of
up from
in true entrusting. So entrusting to Amida, saying, wishing to go to his land and saying his name. And one time when I was thinking about it, I thought, well, that it all kind of flows. One time when I was like thinking through my experience of Jodo Shinshu and of this path is, so conditions ripen so that I could find a good teacher. So if I find a good teacher, or Dharma friends or whatever, then I can deeply listen. I deeply listen. Amida tunes me in through his working, through deep, and then eventually I entrust. It's like a natural step of entrust, and if I entrust, then I naturally want to go to his land, and if I naturally want to go to his land, then I'm going to say in gratitude and faith and Nembutsu. Like it seemed like at one point when I heard that, anyway. I don't know why I'm bringing all that up, but is that similar to those three elements that I've heard? Because aren't they said in the sutra? Isn't that said at some point in the larger sutra that if you entrust Amida wish to be born in his land and say his name? Hello.
Something similar to that, but not exactly that. So the point I would like to point out is that there are teachers who say things like, there are 3 requirements in the primal vow, and it's to have faith, to say the name, and to wish to be born in the land, or 3 conditions.
Something like that.
Yeah, but that's a mistake, because these aren't requirements that we have to fulfill. This would be like a covenant theology or something, where if we don't keep up our end of the bargain, Amida won't take us to the Pure Land kind of thing. So these are not conditions. That's important to understand. These are not like, if we don't say the Nembutsu, we won't go to the Pure Land kind of thing. What this is it's describing how Amida's salvation works in our lives to save us. It's all coming from the side of other power, and it's not something that, it's not requirements like a checklist that we have to
go through to
line up,
check our faith.
But it's not correct understanding of Shinran Shonin's teaching. So that's the only thing I would
as requirement. That's like self-power. If you look at it as requirements or conditions, then that's self-power. Whereas if you look as just aspects or elements of faith given by Amida, then it's just this is what it looks like. If faith comes into your life, or faith happens, then this is what it looks like. Is that right? Is that kind of?
Yes. Yeah. It's the encounter, right, with Amida's name, Amida in the name, and that encounter naturally produces Shinjin. It's like when you go out in the early morning and the sun comes up bright and beautiful, and there's a glorious, purple, pink, golden sunrise.
Yeah.
And you see it and you say, wow. The wow, it's, the sunrise is being seen by you, but the sunrise is the wow. It's the same way. The wow.
Well, the sun causes the wow. The sun.
Exactly. The sun causes
whatever it is that's happening elsewise. Add to that. It's the sun that's.
Yes. And this is why we can't, as because you have experience, we can't try to set up Shinjin in our own mind. It just doesn't work. It is a spontaneous, natural
response
thing that is that is given by the encounter with other power, the primal vow, the working of Amida. And so, that's the meaning of the Nembutsu is wow. That's what the Nembutsu means. Wow. And also thank you. Of course, this is, there's gratitude, there's joy, there's, Yeah.
Is there an aha? Is that part of that? Could that be one of the
Yes, it's a really a spiritual. I mean, we have a lot of. I think even in our discussions here, I mean, we've been having a lot of spiritual aha moments, I would say.
definitely. But it's so yeah, it's more a response. That's
It's
in us, not I gotta have faith.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
like the other George.
yeah. And if I don't have faith,
have
then
I gotta have faith. Anyway, sorry. So yeah, it's not us engendering
right.
that response. Faith is, in this sense, is a response to what Amida is doing.
Yes, and in some sense, it's faith is what Amida is doing. Taking it even one step further. That Shinjin is the working of the vow when it enters our minds and hearts, and is that is what Shinjin is, right? That's what Shinran talks about when he talks about hearing is faith. Hearing is Shinjin, is when we hear the meaning, the reason for the vows, the way the vow was created and fulfilled, then that hearing, true hearing, right, is itself faith.
Yeah.
So there's nothing we need to set up in our minds.
Well, yeah, there's nothing we need to set up. There's nothing we can do. There isn't anything that we could do that would bring that about.
But listening is still important.
Yeah. Which is the only thing we can do. It's the only thing.
Yeah.
But even Amida makes that possible. But we
right
kind of show up for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it's working. We're just listening.
Yes. Like Rinyo said, throw your basket in the water.
What was that too? When I throw my basket in the water, it sinks. What did he?
Someone said to Rinyo Shonin, it's like when I'm listening to the Dharma, it's like a basket full of water, but then after I've listened, it's like the water runs out like a basket, like a sieve, And Rinyo said, well, immerse your basket in the water of the Dharma.
Exactly. That's all we can do. That's all we can do.
Yeah.
It's the most. It's like the more I learn about it, the less there is. It's less and less of me doing anything about anything. It's less and less me trying to handle my karmic condition. It's less and less me trying to bring about anything.
Right. Yeah, and that's how all Buddhism is. is the deconstruction of the ego, right?
Ego, yeah, it is. That's true. It's very true. That's pretty much Buddhism in a nutshell. It's just Amida is doing that for us instead of us doing it.
Exactly. Well, so to bring this around, does this help? Your question, or is there still?
Well, it's in the sense that it does. It definitely does. I mean, in a sense, I've learned an awful lot just by having this discussion. Not necessarily only in the way that the reason I brought up the topic, but it does in the sense that I really have to look at Jodo Shinshu very differently than any other spiritual path, and what you get out of it and what you experience in it is so different Well,
Mm,
it's very
yeah.
totally 100% different than any of the 95 non-Buddhist ways. But then if you look at all the provisional Buddhist teachings, which are good in themselves for, because they're from the Buddha mind, they're from the Dharma, it's the Buddha Dharma. It's just, we're bamboo. It's effective, we're not, and
Right.
so Jodo Shinshu is different in other forms of Buddhism, is that in that we're acknowledging I'm not an extraordinary being. I have no merit that will get me anywhere. I am completely hopelessly mired in this. So Amidas has to do it. I can't, even if I wanted to, and I have wanted to, I couldn't do it. And I still couldn't do it, but I really strongly wanted to. And even when I did do it, it didn't do anything. It didn't accomplish anything.
Yeah.
So do you see what I mean? It's very different than mustering a heroic effort. It's totally different. And in the sense that it's different from the 95 non-Buddhist ways, it's different in the sense that I suppose a similar way, because most of the 95 non-Buddhist ways, you're responsible. You're responsible for your spiritual
Right.
path, your spiritual connection, your spiritual responsibilities. You're responsible for it. In Jodo Shinshu, you're not. In Jodo Shinshu, there's no working is true working. There's
Exactly. Yes. No working is true
totally,
working.
it's like, it's totally different than anything that I've ever explored. I've explored a lot of philosophies, and it's totally, completely, utterly different. Even than Taoism, because Taoism, there's the idea of Wu Wei.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's Wu Wei. It's non-doing, not doing, non-intentional doing. But you're still responsible somehow for doing.
Right. Yeah.
It's still up to you to somehow achieve that, and to get into the stream of that, the flow. It's still kind of up to you somehow to let that happen, or for you to do it. So it's still you're still, so it's totally, that's something I think I have to come to reckon with. I'm not going to get out of Jodo Shinshu what I sought in other ways. I'm just not.
Yeah.
Whether it's 95 non-Buddhist ways or the 5 Buddhist ways.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that in the sense that 95, 5, 100 anyway. So do you know what I mean? It's totally different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although it's accomplishing through Amida's work, it's accomplishing the same thing as other Buddhism. But it's
right.
Then that's what I'm seeking is part of the problem. That's one of the things that's a conclusion I've kind of come through this discussion, is part of the problem is what I'm seeking, and what coming from me that I'm seeking that, which is the problem. All that habituated ignorance and attachments and blind passions, this is another expression of that seeking something from these other spiritual paths. Is part of the problem. It's just another aspect of many. The same problem. Do you see what I mean? And Jodo Shinshu, there's actually no way to approach Jodo Shinshu in that way. It doesn't make sense if you try to. Or it just quickly becomes self-powered Pure Land Buddhism. If you
Yes.
try to, it's no longer Jodo Shinshu.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So it's pretty amazing, actually. It's actually pretty amazing.
I agree.
It's pretty amazing that there's nothing you can do to add to it or to subtract from it or mess it up.
Mm. Yeah.
Because if you're not if you're not doing it the way the teaching, or if you're not non-doing it, whatever, the way that the teaching is given, then you're not actually you're doing self-power Pure Land Buddhism. Anyway,
well,
anyway, sorry.
No, that's exactly, I mean, thank you for sharing your thought on that. I think you're exactly right. Jodo Shinshu is fundamentally and radically different from other religions.
Hands down, nothing like it. Nothing.
Yeah. And it's very easy, like you said, for it to become self-power. And that's why throughout the history of Jodo Shinshu, there have been, debates and starting with Tanisho, right? People have had to clarify again and again and again what that this is not the correct understanding of other power of the primal vow and so on. So but I agree with you.
It's been so refined through Amida's working through the Dharma masters that it's like it's so refined that you can't refine it anymore.
Yes.
It's so which I don't think until this recent months I realized that, and probably till this discussion right now, actually. Because I always thought, well, each of the Dharma masters refined it more. So why hasn't there been a master that went to another level with it? Why hasn't there been? Do you see what I mean? And it's kind of, you can't refine like the ultimate perfect diamond. You can't refine the ultimate like samurai sword, like it's perfect and has the perfect edge and is made, you know what I mean? You can't do you know what I mean? Anyway,
you can't improve on perfection. I think that why I think the teacher who, or the for me as a Jodo Shinshu follower, the teacher who really took it to another level, as you said, that would be Shinran Shonin, right?
Yeah.
And then since Shinran Shonin, the masters of whatever tradition you are in, I am in the Nishi Honganji tradition of school, but they Rinyo Shonin clarified what Shinran Shonin taught, right? But we often use the phrase in Japanese, zettai tariki. We say that Jodo Shinshu is zettai tariki, and what it means is absolute other power. There's no mixture, right? It's not 90, there's not like a label on the primal vow, 99.9% other power. No, there's no additives. It's 100% other power.
Other power. There's no nothing added.
Exactly. Yes.
Truly nothing added.
And that can be hard for people to accept. That's why Jodo Shinshu is a hard thing for a lot of people, is because they're looking for things like what Nichiren Buddhism gives people with the benefits in this life, or they're looking for establishing some devotional connection with a deity, whether it's the God of the Christian Bible or the God of the Quran or, or a Hindu deity. So there's all kinds of reasons, that people are attracted to other paths other than Jodo Shinshu based on their proclivities. And this is where we, probably talk about, like, if someone is not sort of spiritually or karmically attracted to Jodo Shinshu, then they will go down probably some other path, like it may be even not a Buddhist path. So.
Yeah, it's very true. But yeah, this has helped a lot.
Good.
Is it, just realizing that point that, what I'm seeking is part of the disease. That other thing that I'm, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's true for all of us. It's not just you.
Not
what we want.
Cure. It's the disease seeking more of the disease. Basically, it's the making itself worse.
Yeah.
Through the guys, and I think it's, I want this spiritual path, this condition, this experience, but that's just ego perpetuating itself in some way, or whatever. Anyway, yeah. You're right. It doesn't. It's so diametrically different than what your ego wants to do. Do you know what I mean? Every other spiritual path, even, and this is not a criticism of other forms of Buddha, because it's from again, it's the Buddha Dharma, so it's from the Buddha, it's ultimately from the Dharmakaya, that these things arise, but
right.
It still gives you something to do. It still gives that ego something to do. And it's, again, the ego trying to heal itself, a sick, warped, beyond all imagining ego trying to heal itself. And
other,
it still gives you something to do, whereas Jodo Shinshu doesn't. It says, your only job is to listen. That's it.
Yeah, but also singing the Nimbutsu is important.
Yeah. Singing Nimbutsu. Yeah, definitely. Working with, there's things you're supposed to do. Work with the teacher, work with, have Dharma discussions, deeply, say Nimbutsu. But all of that is actually Amida's working.
Right. It's not our own doing things.
Even the things to do, even the practices are not our practices. They're not our,
right. Yes.
It's not our work. Yeah. It's not our spiritual work. It's not our, do you see what I mean? Our merit at work. It's not our heroic effort at work. It's not our intention at work. Or it's Amida.
Totally. Yep. It's no totally working different. Is true working.
Yeah, that's totally different than anything else. And so it's this, I think that's part of my difficulty, is I'm still wanting that something else. I'm wanting that, like I said, that my ego, whatever, I don't want to pretend to understand how it works, but that thing that arises from ignorance and blind passions and limitless kalpas of, just birth and death, is wanting a connection. It's wanting, a nice warm blanket, do you know what I mean? A nice cozy spirit blanket of, I feel so warm and connected. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I totally see where you're from.
So that's part of the problem.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Well, I think though that this session has been really interesting
Good.
conversation and a good conversation to have. I had wanted to talk about the wishing to be born in the Pure Land topic for a while. So, and we can, discuss these things more too, and we should, because there's a lot more to be said about them. But I think that this is hopefully the kind of this breakthrough that you talked about, will maybe sort of open up new areas of exploration kind of for our talks, in the future as well.
I definitely think it will. It feels like that whatever, breakthrough happened kind of has been pushed along greatly by this conversation further.
Great.
And opened it up more. And I kind of feel like now we've really discussed some of the major blockages.
Yeah.
Questions. And so I feel like they've been loosened. Like they were just like, the drain was clogged, man. These things like this, it was like 7 or 8 or 9, 10,000 layers of like clogs. And I feel like, the Drano is getting through now. It's loosened up all that stuff. So I can now, do you see what I mean? I can now start to really talk. Do you know what I mean? And listen.
Yeah.
I'll be able to listen better. And do you see what I mean? Or I'll hear better. That's a better way. I'll hear better now. Like the wax, some of the wax has been
of your ears
cleared out by Amida, and is, now I'll be able to hear a bit better, is a better way to put it, I think.
Yeah, it reminds me of what Shakyamuni said when he started to preach the Dharma, and said there are beings who have but a little dust in their ears who will hear this Dharma.
Yes. What was that? What was that in? What?
I think it's in the Pali or the Tripitaka, when Shakyamuni started preaching the Dharma, and he says that there are beings who have but a small amount of dust in their ears who will be able to hear this Dharma. Of course, in our case, we've got more than a small amount of dust in our ears.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's so much unsaid. That's what's amazing by the and the teachers, like the way they put things. It's so, it says so much more what they didn't say. What was unsaid, it says so much more. Yeah. Anyway, so thank you very much once again.
Yeah, you're welcome. And our next session, go ahead.
And one of these big ones too is my whole moralistic thing.
That's a big one.
Oh man, and it drives me nuts. And it comes back to Tanishu again. There's a toward the end of Tanishu when he's saying, I can't remember if he's talking about Shinran saying this or Honen, we talk only of good and evil. And then goes into a discussion of, if I knew what good was, what good was. If I knew what an evil act was, I would do evil, but I don't know, because I'm a foolish, ignorant being. So I don't know any of those things. And if I did know, then I would have the mind of Amida.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. So what is, what is this impulse? Something like that. That is a huge thing with me, is that, okay, I see these things seem to be very harmful to a person and society and, civilization and what have you. And then these things aren't. And I get very wrapped up in that. Very. And then I said, well, the Buddhist teaching says this about this. So Do you know what I mean? And I try
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
so that's
The
another.
moral, yeah, we can discuss that as well. That's an important topic too. So maybe even in our next session, we could talk about it too.
Yeah, maybe.
Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's an important, very, very important topic, because that's another problem that you run into with sort of non-Jodo Shinshu approaches to
Yes.
Shinron. Yeah.
Definitely.
Now, with regard to our next session,
Yeah.
I have to look at my calendar really quick, but I'm going to be going back to California.
Yeah.
Actually this week, and then I'm going to be over there for a while until I'm going to be coming back on May 8th. So we're going to have to take a bit of a hiatus, and our next session could be on the 15th of May.
Yeah.
If that works for you.
But it's gonna have to be even longer, because this is the big trip that I think I told you about a number of weeks ago, for my mother's 80th birthday.
Oh, wow.
Then so we fly into Pennsylvania, do my mother's 80th birthday, and there's gonna be like 80 people at this party. And like,
yeah,
we have to get this set up in like 2 days. And then, and then the day after, I think we have a day or two maybe in Pennsylvania to just chill. And we fly to Florida for my niece's wedding.
Wow.
So, and then that's a whole nother thing. So anyway, it's about 2 or 3 weeks. So it's
okay.
Look at those dates and
just send me a message and let me know.
To coordinate something. Even
yeah.
there, and still, there's no reason we can't, but we just have to figure it out. I have to really pinpoint when I have free time because I still like to do it, even if it's one of the days that's a free day, if it's one of the Sundays.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd still would like to do that, wherever I am, whether it's Pennsylvania or Miami, and we might even be in the same. No, you'll be back, won't you, by then? Yeah, you'll be back.
I will be back on the 8th of May. So yeah, we could definitely set something up. We'll have to keep in mind. We're going to
try to do it in the States, then the time zone situation will be different from the East Coast.
Right.
Will that be even more? So
I'm not sure.
You'll be like another 5 hours ahead of me. You'll be 14 hours ahead of me.
Right. So it would have to be, you would have to be Skyping on Saturday, I think, is how it would work.
And I'll be talking.
Or possibly, but let's look into that and see if we can figure out.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd be happy to if you want to. Of course, you can also, feel free to enjoy your time with your family.
I do want to do that, but I still, but this is hugely important. This is actually the most important thing to me in life is my Jodo Shinshu path. It's actually to become a Buddha actually is my highest priority, period. So therefore,
good.
This is my only avenue to get there. So this is the priorities part of that most important thing. So anyway, so we'll see what we can. All right, we'll try to.
Let's do it for sure.
Again, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it. These talks, and I'd like to talk about eventually. I haven't talked about this yet because I wanted to really be sure before I is getting more involved with the Nishi Hwanji.
Oh yeah, we can certainly talk about that. And I've been wanting to maybe introduce some of the Shoshinge and Waspon and some of the liturgy and chants and so on, and history. We can discuss history, and there's a lot of things we can talk about, and getting it maybe more involved with because the language barrier is kind of a hard one, but
Yeah, yeah. But there's a lot of pretty active American
yes, yeah,
Shinshu. I don't know whether they're all Nishi, but there's at least like there's the Oregon Buddhist temple.
right. Yeah, I'm actually a good friend
Very
of
active
the
internationally and online, and even more so since the pandemic. They've
yeah,
increased their online
yeah,
inclusivity type of thing. And there's some in Hawaii as well that are seem to be
yeah,
very active. But yeah,
yes, yeah.
good
That
old
would be a
the
good option.
West Coast and Hawaii.
Yeah,
All the good, so many good things are there.
indeed. I'm actually. You mentioned the Oregon Buddhist temple. I'm a good friend with Reverend Yuki Fujihara, who's the resident minister there.
Okay, yeah, I've listened to some of his.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
cool.
He does a lot of really good explanations in English of Shinshu texts, and so yeah, we can certainly,
Well,
I can introduce
like I
you
said,
to some
and maybe
sources.
getting involved and maybe attending, if there's online Dharma talks,
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to, I'd like to formalize, to become part of a
yeah.
sangha.
I think that would be great for you, actually. So let's definitely
I
talk
loved it.
about that.
And I think I'm in a different place now, and it'll be in a healthy way. I want to approach it in a
Yeah,
healthy Jodo Shinshu way.
sounds great. All right, well, let's definitely talk again, and
Okay.
it's my pleasure to discuss this with you. So
Thank you so much. Take care, and until we connect again.
yeah, safe travels.
Safe travels. Yeah, to us both. Yeah, and we shall meet. We shall meet again.
We will indeed.
All right. Take care.
All right, Scott. Namo Amida Butsu. Take care.
Bye bye.